Well, welcome everybody. Good afternoon and thank you for joining us here today. My name is Tracy Cook. I'm the Executive Director for the Invasive Species Centre, and I'm pleased to be your MC for this event today. I would like to start by acknowledging that we are on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe peoples. I wish to recognize the long history of First Nations and Métis peoples in Ontario and show respect to them today. I also want to recognize the neighboring communities of Curve Lake First Nation and Hiawatha First Nation. I would also like to thank you, Minister McGarry, for inviting me here today and for your continued support of the Invasive Species Centre. We were so pleased to have you visit us in Sault Ste. Marie earlier this summer. And today we are here to celebrate an example of successful partnerships in the province of Ontario. And to start things off, I'm pleased to introduce Minister Jeff Leal, the Member of Provincial Parliament for the City of Peterborough. So come on up, Jeff.
Thanks so much. All these mics set up here today. You think I might be making a major speech about something, but we're really here to, of course, to celebrate the 25 years of combating invasive species in the province of Ontario. And if you just look behind me for a moment, two young fellows there with their fishing poles. And we know, I want to take the time, of course, to highlight the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters. So very pleased, of course, I'm a member, and that they have their headquarters right here in Peterborough. And the great stewardship that OFH have been involved in so many decades here in the province of Ontario to make sure that we preserve the environment, those opportunities for the next generation to be able to hunt and fish in the province of Ontario, which is such an integral part of Ontario's history, particularly as we're celebrating the 150th anniversary of Canada becoming a nation, and of course the 150th anniversary of Ontario becoming a province. And as I said, hunting and fishing historically has been a great part of our heritage, and we want to continue to have that happen for decades to come. And OFAH is a very important partner in make that happening. My good friend Terry Reese is with us today, the Federation of the Ontario Cottages Association. Of course, we all know, particularly in this area, through the great Kawartha Lakes, many of our friends and neighbors have cottages, and of course, part of that cottage experience is that ability to get up at 5 a.m. On a Sunday morning or a Monday morning to get out and to enjoy fishing on our pristine waters that continue within the Kawartha Lakes. We continue to fight invasive species, as the province of Ontario has over the last 25 years. We do know that invasive species get into our water systems. I think of milfoil that got into our system, the Asian carp, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And if we don't combat those invasive species, they fundamentally change the ecosystem right here in the province of Ontario, and something that we want to prevent from happening. I know my colleague, the Minister McGarry, the hardworking MPP from Cambridge, is certainly taking this job on with great gusto in order to make sure that part of our legacy through the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry is to remain both the fishing and hunting heritage in the province of Ontario. And one of the great ways on the fishing side we can make that happen is up our game when it comes to fighting invasive species in every part of the province of Ontario. So without any further ado, I want to introduce the champion to make sure that we curtail invasive species in the province of Ontario to protect that heritage for the next generation. Our friend, your friend, the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry, the Honourable Catherine McGarry. Catherine, please.
Well, thank you very much, Minister Leal. I know that we work very closely together at Queen's Park, and our ministries are kind of joined at the knee, hip, and the shoulder when it comes to anything that's happening out on the land. And I certainly appreciate being in your wonderful municipality here. The weather is so much better than we've experienced in my neck of the woods recently, and what a wonderful backdrop. So thanks so much for everybody else for joining us this afternoon. It's an incredibly important day. We're here today to celebrate a significant anniversary and to also celebrate some of the successes that we've had in preventing and combating the spread of invasive species. Those of us that are gathered here today know better than most the real threat that these species can pose to our province, like zebra mussels. Anybody heard of those? 30 years ago, had you heard about them? Well, now we're having to live with some of the results. A menace that's clogging our intake pipes, costing the province between $75 million and $91 million each year to manage this species. And that's the real cost to the municipalities. Insects like the Asian longhorn and pine beetle, and they are threatening the vitality and the economic opportunity of our forests across Canada as well as across Ontario. In fact, it was estimated in 2004 that invasive plants were already costing Canada's agriculture and forest industries in Canada about, it's staggering, $7.5 billion a year. And that was in 2004. So it's a fact that I know that my colleague, the Minister of Agriculture, is not surprised by. He and his folks are also having to take a lot of steps in order to ensure that our agricultural lands are preserved and protected from invasive species. But it's very, very important for all of us to prevent, wherever possible, these species from even ever arriving in our province, isn't it? Let me talk about forestry. It's a $15 billion industry in our province. It supports almost 172,000 direct and indirect jobs here in the province of Ontario, over 260 communities. Many people only think of it as the north. We have thousands of jobs right here in southern Ontario with forestry. But this industry also faces a risk of invasive pests such as the mountain pine beetle. This is one type of beetle that has killed about half of the volume of commercial pine trees in British Columbia and has moved east to Alberta. And as we know, central BC continues to burn. And I have to just give one shout out now to the forest firefighters from Ontario that have gone out and continue to assist battling those blazes in middle BC. Can we give them a hand? But invasive pine beetle is now found within 50 kilometers of the Saskatchewan border, and it's poised to move further east. That worries all of us. Asian carp. That is, a species that is found in our Great Lakes and has long been a serious threat to our Great Lakes. A $2.2 billion sport fishing industry is poised to have severe consequences if they get established. These invasive species of fish, as you know, have overwhelmed some river systems in the United States, where they now make up over 95% of the fish in some areas. We need to prevent that from getting in our Great Lakes. So in view of these serious and complex threats, our government has worked with our partners to achieve measurable results to ensure our province is ready to fight these invaders when and where we need to. And just this past year, we put in place Ontario's Invasive Species Act, the first standalone provincial legislation of its kind in Canada. If anyone's keeping track, that was passed on November 3rd, 2016. And it was really an incredible day. And I think all of us here should be proud of the work that we've done together to bring that act forward. We couldn't have done it without your partnership and your comments and your support of that act. But as you very well know, the key objective of that act is to prevent the new invasive species from even coming in and taking hold in the province of Ontario in the first place. So the act also specifies and provides some tools to support the prevention, early detection, response, and eradication of identified invasive species. It's almost like your health care. You prevent it to begin with, your health care costs go down later. To date, we have prohibited 16 high-risk plant and fish species, including all 4 species of Asian carps in Ontario. We've also restricted 3 more plant species the least wanted in Ontario, which are already found in our province, including the rapidly spreading Phragmites. Those are those tall reeds beside highways, along shorefronts, and interestingly, in my two Ministers Forum, fondly known as the Bear Pit at the AMO conference, I've had two questions, one last year, two this year. But one last year and one this year. The only thing that people really wanted to know about was what we were doing about Phragmites. It is an issue in municipalities across Ontario. But I'm particularly proud of our public education program and outreach campaigns on invasive species, and I really want to thank again our partners for contributing to and supporting these campaigns. We couldn't do it without all of your help here. A visit to Invasion, capital O and capital N, at ontario.ca offers information on invasive species, as well as some of the concrete steps that can be taken to prevent the spread of these species. We continue to work closely on invasive species with a wide range of government partners, including municipalities, other ministries. As I said, we work very, very closely together on these files, the federal government, but also the U.S. jurisdictions in the Great Lakes Basin. And even later this afternoon, I'm flying down and meeting with my government counterparts in the U.S., in Ohio, to discuss Asian carp and how we can better protect our Great Lakes. So I'm very much looking forward to those meetings tomorrow. But most importantly, though, we have battled this onslaught by cooperating with our dedicated partners. And as Minister Leo has said, the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters are there at every step of the way. The Invasive Species Centre, thanks so much for the work that you do. The Ontario Invasive Plant Council, couldn't do this work without you. And also the Federation of Ontario Cottagers Associations, very much appreciate the support that we continue to receive from you. And it's certainly where we can roll out some of these things. It's really word of mouth and any other way we can get these messages out that really helps. And we have many other partners as well. But as you know, the main reason that we're here today is to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Invading Species Awareness Program. And that is quite a milestone. This is an awareness program that has really stepped up, and people ask me about it now. And you know, if you were talking about invading species 20 years ago, the general public really wasn't sure what they were talking about. But communicating with and educating the public is a critical component of any effort to manage invasive species. We all have to be able to recognize them and to know what to do with them and to know where to go for that information if you do come across one. And it's what exactly we've been doing with the OFAH since 1992, which is really sounding like only a couple of years ago, right? But this successful partnership has very much helped to raise the awareness of the threat of invasive species to our biodiversity and engage the public in preventing and controlling the spread of invasive species through its reporting hotline and online tracking system. And it's really through initiatives like this that people across Ontario know what an Asian carp is, or Phragmites is, or what purple loosestrife is, and it is working. Recently, what came across our desk was a Facebook post by a very proud fisherman that was holding his fish up. Somebody took a picture of it and he posted it on Facebook. His very good friend immediately got back to him. He said, "That looks like a grass carp." He says, "What?" "That looks like a grass carp." Sure enough, it was identified as a grass carp. They called the hotline. They managed to get the Federal Department of Fisheries and Ocean out, and were able to curtail and find that threat. That is social media at work. That's precisely what we're trying to get across there. This year, just to give you some of the idea of the costs and some of the funding that the provincial government is providing on our front, we are providing $400,000 in funding to support this program, a program that has demonstrated time and again that funding our provincial government provides pays dividends through increased public awareness, through new prevention efforts, and through effective eradication methods. As you know, too, we've also helped to establish the Invasive Species Centre in Sault Ste. Marie. and are providing $1 million this year to support this center's vital work. The center provides us with cutting-edge invasive species research to inform our policy and operational decisions. I had an occasion just a few weeks ago to finally make it to go and tour the center. It was incredible. Undertaking vital work such as socioeconomic risk assessments and supporting eradication and control projects. And I saw things in there and had things crawl on me that I can't really identify, but I didn't get bitten by anything. And it's incredible work, and it's groundbreaking work to ensure that we have solutions once we do identify the threat. And I really just hand it to these incredible staff and an incredible facility. And it's a one of a kind. So we are leading the research here in Ontario, something we can all be proud of and something our government is extremely proud to support. But we're also pleased to support the great work of the Ontario Invasive Plant Council and its Grow Me Instead program. It provides about $150,000 to help the council to share best practices and advice about invasive plant species directly with members of the public, and also to ensure gardeners across Ontario can keep their gardens free from invaders. Well, I live in the rural township of North Dumfries Township, and if you put a pin in the center of my house where I've lived since 1989 and drew a 2-kilometer circle, you can pretty well find most of my mandate thereby. So we drove around our rural roads when we first moved there. What's that beautiful plant? I'd love to cut some of those down and have them just in my house or in my garden. But we knew that we were in new territory, and my husband checked in and found those beautiful tall reeds were Phragmites. So needless to say, I do not look at them as pretty plants anymore, but we do still hear of gardeners just going out to the country and picking up these invasive plants and putting them in their garden without recognizing the threat. So that's why it's so important to have these programs on the ground. We're also happy to be providing $50,000 to the Federation of Ontario Cottages Associations so that lakefront property owners are informed about the aquatic invasive species and ways to prevent their spread. Again, mouth to mouth, it's really important. I'm also really, really pleased with the results that we're achieving from all the investments that we've been making to date. We are making some progress. But in addition to the work I've already mentioned to highlight our partners, we've also supported or undertaken a few key initiatives. This includes groundbreaking research into new biological control agents for Phragmites, dog strangling vine, and Japanese knotweed. I'm not sure who comes up with those names, but it's pretty visual. Dog strangling vine, that's a bit horrifying to say. But those programs do help, and we've also launched some programs to eradicate water soldier and European water chestnut from Ontario. A particularly successful project involving the OFAH and other partners has been Project Purple, which has significantly reduced the population of purple loosestrife in the province as a result of the release of small leaf-eating beetles that have minimized the plant's impact on the environment. And they proudly point to where that release happened, right here in Peterborough. So thank you so much for that. When I first moved to my rural property and faced the pond, it's not mine, but I face it, and I said to my husband, "What a beautiful purple plant." And he said, "That's purple loosestrife, and it's not pretty at all." Now in my pond, there is no more purple loosestrife, but Phragmites has taken hold. So I certainly live and breathe this each and every day of my life. Another great program, the Clean Boats, Clean Tournaments program, is engaging competitive tournament anglers in efforts to prevent the spread of the invasive species. An invasive species outreach material has been developed and shared with millions of Ontarians each year, including best management practice guidelines for a number of key invasive plant species. There are a range of other initiatives, but I think you get the picture that on the ground, in all jurisdictions, this work is going on. We in the province of Ontario continue to be committed to leading Ontario's fight against invasive species. We've shown that leadership through our actions, as well as our continued investments. Actions will ensure ecosystems like the Autonomy River behind me here will be continuing to be places where anglers drop in their lines, our children can boat and fish and swim in these rivers. And as you know, we all need to work together in this fight. It's why I'm so pleased again to stand here today with our very, very important partners from the OFAH, the ISC, the Ontario Invasive Plant Council, and also FOCA. You are doing an incredible amount to protect our province, and I know that the work that you are doing in our communities across Ontario is incredibly appreciated by residents, by governments alike, and we are very, very grateful for your contributions. We don't know what challenges may lay ahead, but we do know the implications could be severe. That's one of the reasons why we're here today, and one of the reasons we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Invading Species program. Thank you so much for your attention today.
Thank you very much, Minister McGarry, and for your continued commitment and support to the programs that fight invasive species in Ontario. And next, I'd like to invite Angelo Lombardo, who is the Executive Director for the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters, to say a few words.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Tracy, and both to Minister McGarry and Minister Leal. Thanks for bringing a bit of sunshine to the city of Peterborough. It's been a pretty wet summer, so I think it's because of this event that we've been blessed with a sunny day. So for nearly 90 years, the OFAH has worked to promote and encourage the conservation of Ontario's fish and wildlife and their habitats and the supporting ecosystems to ensure continuing benefits for all Ontarians. When invasive species first came on the scene, it didn't take long for anglers and hunters to realize they were going to have considerable impacts on not only the environment, but also the benefits that Ontarians receive from the environment. As well, it certainly didn't take long to realize that humans were a contributing factor to the introduction and spread of invasive species. So as the Minister mentioned, it certainly was an honor and a pleasure to join forces with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry in 1992 to deliver the Invading Species Awareness Program with the objectives of generating education and awareness of invasive species, addressing key pathways contributing to the introduction and spread, and facilitating monitoring and early detection initiatives for Ontario. Our investment in the Invading Species Awareness Program is a natural fit for a grassroots conservation organization like the OFAH. Our members expect us to tackle any threats to fish and wildlife conservation in Ontario, and the harmful impact of invasive species on our woods and waters is all known too well to anglers and hunters. Their time spent in the outdoors and demonstrated willingness to roll up their sleeves and make a difference for conservation and be part of the solution makes anglers and hunters ideal champions for invasive species awareness and outreach. And it's through our membership, our affiliated conservation clubs, our magazine subscribers, and our partners, many of who are with us here today, as well as numerous organizations from right across Ontario, we've been able to effectively communicate about invasive species to anglers and hunters and the broader outdoor community. From humble beginnings in 1992, the Invading Species Awareness Program has grown into a large-scale, multifaceted program. 25 years ago, we focused on reports of zebra mussels, as the minister mentioned. To then, we had a program, it was the Zebra Mussel Hotline. Today, that particular program has evolved into what is now known as the Invading Species Hotline, through which hundreds of invasive species sightings were confirmed annually. And now the Invading Species program offers a suite of reporting tools, including a reported website with an affiliated mobile app, making invasive species reporting easier than it's ever been before. Instead of 42 reports received annually, the Invading Species Awareness Program is now receiving thousands of reports each and every year, 9,000 alone in 2016. There is no doubt that the complexity of this issue has grown over the past 25 years, and the results there have, and through that, there has been many positive results. The program is tracking over 150 invasive species, working with numerous partners to deliver community-based education and outreach initiatives for both aquatic and terrestrial invasive species, and has a leading role in one of the largest eradication projects in Ontario, eradicating water soldier from the Trent Severn waterway, and that's extremely important. We've come a long way. I think everyone will agree we've come a long way since 1992, and here we are 25 years later, celebrating not only the numerous successes and achievements of our partnerships, but also the contributions that have been made by many organizations, and the Minister mentioned those in her remarks just a few moments ago. We've accomplished a lot in 25 years, but there's still lots of work to do. And I believe firmly that through the strength of partnerships and the collaborations that we formed and will continue to form, we will continue to achieve great things on behalf of all Ontarians and our important environment as well as our economy. Once again, it's certainly been a pleasure to be part of this milestone event, this celebration, and we certainly look forward to what the next 25 years brings. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Angelo. Well, the Invasive Species Centre itself exists because of partnership formed in 2011 by provincial and federal government, and is a hub for collaboration and knowledge sharing that connects stakeholders in invasive species research and action in Ontario and beyond. We are proud to have, with the support of the MNRF, been able to invest $4.6 million into invasive species science, research, and technology through working with our partner organizations such as the OFAH and the OIPC. It is our partnerships that allow us to succeed and push us closer to our goal of reducing and preventing the spread of invasive species. In this past year alone, we have created 33 new network partners, and we will continue to work with MNRF and other partners, expanding the reach of our messages. This year, we look forward to working on ecological and socioeconomic risk assessments, highlighting the economic impacts of invasive species in Ontario, and supporting the MNRF Forest Health Program. So congratulations to our partner, the OFAH, and the Province of Ontario on having reached a milestone of 25 years in partnership. We're very proud to work with important partners in the province. And thank you all for attending this announcement event today. Together, we have proven that we can accomplish so much more. So we're very proud to work with the partners that are here today, and we look forward to many more years to working with you in the province. And thank you very much.